All right, let's make this simple. Show me proof you're in this country legally. And what authority do you have to ask me that while I'm filling up my truck? If you don't prove you're a citizen right now, you're going in cuffs. I'm a citizen and a lieutenant of 17 years of service. You want proof?
That was an ICE agent demanding papers at a gas station. The man he just threatened, a police lieutenant. 19 years, 2 medals of valor, 32 officers under his command. He spent 2 decades protecting his community, and today the system he served treated him like a criminal at a gas pump. That decision will cost a federal agency $12.9 million. But before a single dollar changes hands, Rawlings will make 3 more mistakes, each one worse than the last. If this is your first time here, these stories need to be heard. Hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Saturday morning. July. Marcus Ellington pulled his pickup into the gas station on Route 9, the same station he stopped at every weekend. He was on his way to pick up his daughter from soccer practice. Gray Henley shirt shorts, nothing unusual, just a father running errands on his day off. But here's what you need to know about Marcus Ellington. 19 years on the force, lieutenant. 32 officers answered to him. He'd earned 2 medals of valor, both for running toward gunfire to save civilians. A master's degree in criminal justice. And in his wallet, like every single day since he made the academy, his badge and his police ID sat in the front pocket. He didn't know any of that would matter today. A black SUV pulled into the station. ICE markings on the side. Agent Derek Rawlings stepped out with 2 officers behind him. No database check, no dispatch call, no name, no plate, no tip. Rawlings looked across the lot, saw Marcus, and made a decision. That's all it took. 7 years on the job, 4 civilian complaints in the last 3, 2 formal warnings. And Rawlings still trusted his gut over procedure. Marcus saw them coming. He set the pump handle back, kept his hands visible. He offered to show his ID before anyone asked. Rawlings didn't care. He wasn't interested in identification. He wanted proof of citizenship. This wasn't the first time Rawlings had done this. It wouldn't be the last, but it would be the most expensive. Marcus reached into his wallet, slow, deliberate. He pulled out his police ID and his badge, the same badge he'd carried for 19 years. He held them both up, side by side, steady as stone. He spoke clearly so every microphone within 50 feet could catch it: his name, his rank, his precinct, his badge number. Lieutenant Marcus Ellington, 19 years of service. Commanding Officer Patrol Division. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Rawlings looked at the badge, looked at the ID, then said 6 words that would cost him everything. Anyone can buy one of these. Let that settle for a second. A federal agent just looked at an authentic police badge with a verifiable badge number held by a man who gave his full name and unit and dismissed it as a toy. He didn't call the precinct. He didn't run the badge number. He didn't take 10 seconds to verify. He just decided it wasn't real. Because in Derek Rawlings' mind, he'd already made his decision the moment he looked across that parking lot. Now here's what Rawlings didn't know, or maybe what he forgot. 3 body cams were rolling. Federal regulation required every ICE agent on duty to have their camera activated during civilian contact. Rawlings' camera, agent number 2, agent number 3, all recording. That's 3 angles of high-definition federal footage capturing every word, every gesture, every decision. But that wasn't all. The gas station had 2 security cameras, one aimed at the pumps, one covering the lot entrance. Both recording to a hard drive inside the manager's office. And across the station, at least 2 customers had their phones out. One of them was already filming. 6 sources, 360 degrees. Rawlings thought this was a routine stop at a quiet gas station. He was standing in the middle of a surveillance net and didn't have a clue. The cameras were recording. They always were. Rawlings radioed dispatch. He read off Marcus's name and date of birth. Asked for a full background check. That was the first smart thing he'd done in 10 minutes. And then he immediately ruined it. He didn't wait for the result. Instead, he turned back to Marcus and pointed at the truck. Hands on the vehicle, now. Marcus complied. He placed both palms flat on the side of his pickup, fingers spread, but he didn't stay quiet. His voice was calm, measured the voice of a man who had spent 2 decades de-escalating situations exactly like this one. I'm complying with your instruction, but I do not consent to this detention. I do not consent to a search, and I want it on record. Everything is being recorded. Every word precise, every sentence a legal brick. Marcus wasn't just cooperating, he was building a case in real time, and Rawlings was too blinded by his own authority to see it. The man with his hands on the truck knew more about Fourth Amendment procedure than the man with the badge telling him what to do. That's when the station owner came outside. Frank Mercer owned the gas station for 22 years. He walked toward the agents with his hands visible and spoke directly to Rawlings. He said he knew Marcus, saw him here every Saturday, sometimes twice a week, knew his name, knew his truck, knew he was a police lieutenant because Marcus had helped him file a report when someone broke into the station 3 years ago. Frank Mercer wasn't guessing. He was a witness offering direct personal knowledge of the man Rawlings was detaining. Rawlings told him to step back. Then he went further. He told Frank that if he didn't return inside his store immediately, he'd be arrested for obstruction of a federal officer, a 22-year business owner, offering first-hand identification, threatened with arrest for telling the truth. Frank went back inside, but he didn't stop watching, and the cameras didn't stop rolling. 4 minutes later, dispatch came back with the results. Marcus Ellington, no warrants, no criminal record, United States citizen, born in Virginia. Active law enforcement officer confirmed by state database. Everything Marcus had said from the very first second was true. Badge real, ID real, rank real, citizenship never in question. Rawlings heard the confirmation through his earpiece. The 2 agents behind him heard it too. One of them shifted his weight, looked down. He knew what that result meant, but Rawlings didn't release Marcus. He didn't apologize. He didn't uncuff the situation. He stood there processing, and in that silence made a choice that would define the rest of his career. He wasn't done, not yet, and that was his second mistake. Rawlings reached for his cuffs. Marcus heard the metal before he felt it. He turned his head just enough to speak directly into the body cam on Rawlings's chest. "You just ran my name. Dispatch cleared me. On what basis are you placing me in restraints?" Rawlings didn't answer the question. He said 2 words: further verification. Further verification. Dispatch had already returned a clean result. No warrants, no record, confirmed U.S. citizen, confirmed active law enforcement. Every box checked, every answer clean. And Rawlings' response to that was to escalate. He grabbed Marcus's left wrist first, then the right. The click of the handcuffs was sharp and metallic, the kind of sound that cuts through ambient noise on body cam audio like a gunshot. Click, click, locked. That sound would be played in a federal courtroom 14 months later. The jury would hear it 3 times. Now let's stop here and understand where we are. 14 minutes. That's how long it had been since Marcus Ellington pulled into this gas station to fill up his truck. 14 minutes since he was just a man on a Saturday morning, running an errand before picking up his daughter from soccer practice. 14 minutes, and now he was standing in handcuffs between the gas pumps and a pickup truck, wearing a gray Henley and shorts, no different from any other father in America on a weekend. Except for one thing. The people watching knew him. The woman at pump 3. Marcus had responded to a break-in at her home 4 years ago. The teenager sitting in the parked car near the air machine, his mother worked at the same precinct. Frank Mercer, watching through the glass door of his station, had known Marcus for years. These weren't strangers witnessing an arrest. These were neighbors watching a man they trusted, a man who had protected them, standing in handcuffs for the crime of filling up his truck. And his daughter was still waiting at the soccer field. 20 minutes past pickup. No call, no text. Just an 11-year-old girl sitting on a bench wondering where her father was. Rawlings wasn't finished. He walked to Marcus' pickup, opened the driver's side door without asking, reached inside. Marcus spoke again, steady as before. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. You have no warrant. You have no probable cause. This is being recorded. Rawlings ignored him. He leaned across the front seat, opened the glove box, checked under the seats, moved to the back. Here's what he found: a mesh bag with soccer cleats, shin guards, and a water bottle. Pink, size 4. His daughter's gear packed and ready for practice. And on the passenger seat, a book, Constitutional Law and Criminal Procedure, 3rd edition. Dog-eared, highlighted, the kind of book a man reads when he spent 19 years believing the system works and wants to make sure he can prove it when the system fails. Rawlings closed the door. He didn't say anything about what he found. There was nothing to say. He had searched a U.S. citizen's private vehicle without consent, without a warrant, and without a single piece of probable cause, and the only evidence inside was proof that Marcus Ellington was exactly who he said he was. 3 mistakes: detention without reasonable suspicion, handcuffs after dispatch clearance, warrantless search of a private vehicle, each one a separate constitutional violation, each one captured on 6 recording devices, each one building a case that Marcus hadn't even filed yet. Then the black SUV arrived. Sergeant William Holt, Rawlings' direct supervisor. Someone at dispatch had flagged the stop, an active police lieutenant being detained by ICE, and Holt drove to the scene himself. He didn't speak to Marcus first. He walked straight to Rawlings and asked for his body cam. Rawlings unclipped it. Holt reviewed the footage right there in the parking lot, scrolling through the last 40 minutes on the small screen. It took him less than 3 minutes. Holt turned to Rawlings and his voice was low but clear enough for the remaining 2 body cams to pick up every word. You had no authority for any of this. Remove the restraints, now. Rawlings uncuffed Marcus without a word. The click of the cuffs opening sounded nothing like the click of them closing. One was an act of power. The other was the beginning of its collapse. Marcus rubbed his wrists. 47 minutes. That's how long he'd been detained. 47 minutes for filling up his truck on a Saturday morning. Sergeant Holt gave Marcus a card, told him to contact the office if he wanted to file a formal complaint. Professional, procedural, correct. But here's what didn't happen. Nobody apologized. Not Rawlings. Not the 2 agents who stood behind him the entire time and said nothing. Not Sergeant Holt. 47 minutes of humiliation in front of his community handcuffs. On a police lieutenant with 19 years of service and a legal search of his personal vehicle, and the only thing Marcus received was a business card and a suggestion. Marcus put the card in his wallet, right next to his badge. He got in his truck, started the engine, and drove to the soccer field to pick up his daughter. She asked him why he was late. He told her traffic. But Marcus Ellington wasn't the kind of man who let things go. He was the kind of man who kept a constitutional law textbook on his passenger seat. And by Monday morning, that business card wouldn't be in his wallet anymore. It would be on a lawyer's desk. Monday morning, 8:47 a.m., Marcus Ellington walked into the offices of Brennan Calloway and Associates, one of the top civil rights litigation firms in the state. They specialized in one thing: federal misconduct. Section 1983 violations, 4th Amendment cases, excessive force, unlawful detention. This was what they did every day, every case. Marcus sat down with lead attorney Sharon Calloway. He didn't bring emotion, he brought evidence. The gas station security footage Frank Mercer had saved it the same day. 2 cell phone videos from bystanders, both time-stamped. His police ID, his badge, his service record. And one detail that mattered more than all of it: a formal request for all 3 ICE body cam recordings under federal disclosure rules. Calloway filed the request that afternoon. The agency had 30 days to comply. They took 29. When the footage arrived, it confirmed everything. But Calloway wasn't just building a case around one stop at one gas station. She was looking for a pattern, and she found one. Derek Rawlings' internal affairs file told a story he thought no one would ever read. 4 civilian complaints in 3 years. Every single one involved a person of color detained in a public space. A grocery store parking lot in March 2 years prior, a black school teacher held for 20 minutes while her students watched from the bus. A gas station the following autumn, a Latino construction foreman detained during his lunch break, released without explanation. A public park 6 months later, a black minister stopped while walking his dog, asked for identification 3 times, despite presenting his driver's license twice. 4 complaints, 2 formal warnings. 0 disciplinary action beyond a note in his file. Rawlings had been told twice in writing that he lacked reasonable suspicion in his stops, and twice he signed the acknowledgement, filed it away, and changed nothing. 4 stops, 3 years, 0 lessons learned. Calloway entered every complaint into evidence. The pattern was undeniable. Not a single stop initiated by dispatch, not a single database check before contact, not a single instance of articulable reasonable suspicion documented in Rawlings's own reports. He operated on instinct, and his instinct had a very specific profile. The case went to federal court 14 months after that Saturday morning at the gas station. The courtroom was quiet when they played the body cam footage. 12 jurors watched 47 minutes of unedited video from Rawlings' own chest camera. They saw Marcus pull into the station. They saw him begin pumping gas. They saw 3 agents approach without cause. They heard Marcus identify himself clearly, calmly, completely. They watched Rawlings dismiss a police badge as something anyone could buy. They heard dispatch confirm Marcus as a U.S. citizen with no record. And then they heard the click of handcuffs. Nobody in that jury box looked away. Calloway's cross-examination of Rawlings lasted less than 40 minutes. She didn't need more. "Agent Rawlings, did you run Mr. Ellington's name or plates before approaching him?" "No." "Did you receive a tip, a call, or any dispatch communication directing you to that gas station?" "No." "Did Mr. Ellington exhibit any behavior at all, that would constitute reasonable suspicion under federal guidelines?" Silence. "He was pumping gas, Agent Rawlings. What was your basis for contact?" More silence. Rawlings' attorney objected. The judge overruled. Calloway pulled up the body cam frame where Marcus held his badge and ID side by side. She asked Rawlings to read out loud the badge number visible on screen. He read it. She asked him if he had at any point during the 47-minute detention called that badge number in to verify it. He had not. She asked if he was aware that a single phone call lasting approximately 90 seconds would have confirmed Lieutenant Ellington's identity and ended the encounter. Rawlings said yes. She asked why he didn't make that call. He said he was following protocol. Calloway turned to the jury. She didn't raise her voice. She said 6 cameras recorded this encounter. 3 federal body cams, 2 security cameras, 1 bystander phone. Not a single frame, not one, supports the claim that protocol was followed. Every frame shows the opposite. The defense had no rebuttal footage, no dispatch records justifying the stop, no witness who could explain why a man pumping gas on a Saturday morning required handcuffs and a vehicle search. They had nothing because there was nothing. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Now 47 minutes in handcuffs at a gas station. No warrant, no probable cause. No reasonable suspicion, no apology. A man with 19 years of service, 2 medals of valor, and 32 officers under his command treated like a suspect for filling up his truck. And then a federal agency hit with a $12.9 million verdict. You tell me, does that punishment fit what happened? Drop a comment. I want to hear what you think. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. 12 jurors, 1 decision, unanimous, $12.9 million. Awarded to Lieutenant Marcus Ellington for violations of his Fourth Amendment rights, unlawful detention, unlawful search, and racial profiling by a federal officer acting under color of law. At the time, it was one of the largest individual settlements against an ICE field unit in the region's history, but the money was only the beginning. Derek Rawlings was terminated, 7 years with the agency over. No transfer, no reassignment, no quiet resignation with benefits. Fired. His badge, his credentials, his service weapon turned in the same week the verdict was read. The man who told Marcus Ellington that anyone could buy a badge no longer had one of his own. The two agents who stood behind Rawlings that Saturday morning, the ones who watched everything and said nothing, received 18-month suspensions without pay. They didn't give the orders. They didn't put on the cuffs, but they were there. They saw a fellow officer present valid identification. They heard dispatch confirm his identity, and they stood silent while their partner escalated a stop that should have ended in 30 seconds. Silence has a cost. Theirs was 18 months. The regional ICE office faced a federal court mandatory retraining for every agent in the district, reasonable suspicion standards, racial profiling protocols, Fourth Amendment compliance. The training module would be built in part around the body cam footage from that gas station on Route 9. Every new agent cycling through that office would watch Rawlings make his 3 mistakes. They would hear the click of the handcuffs, and they would learn what happens when instinct replaces procedure. 4 complaints in 3 years didn't stop Rawlings. $12.9 million did. Now let me tell you where Marcus Ellington is today. He's still on the force. Promoted to captain 6 months after the verdict, a rank earned on merit, not sympathy. 40 officers under his command now. He runs the same district he served for over 2 decades, and he still drives the same pickup truck to the same gas station on Saturday mornings. Frank Mercer still waves from behind the counter, but Marcus did something with that settlement money that no one expected. He set up a fund, a free legal education program for his community workshops held at churches, community centers, and public libraries. The curriculum is simple. Know your rights when you're stopped. What to say, what not to say, when to comply, when to document, how to protect yourself with words before you ever need a lawyer. 1,400 people attended in the first year alone. Marcus teaches some of the sessions himself. A police captain standing in front of his own community, teaching citizens how to hold law enforcement accountable, including officers like him. He doesn't see the contradiction. He sees the point. His oldest daughter, the one who waited on that soccer field bench, just submitted her application to law school. Her personal essay was about a Saturday morning in July when her father was 47 minutes late. She didn't write about anger. She wrote about what her father did on Monday. And Marcus's father, the first black police officer in the county, the man who walked that path decades before his son was sitting in the courtroom the day the verdict was read. 81 years old. He didn't say much afterward. He didn't need to. He just put his hand on his son's shoulder, and that was enough. 3 generations, 1 family. A legacy that started with a man who believed the badge meant something and a son who proved it did. 19 years of service, 2 medals of valor, 32 officers under his command, and he was still put in handcuffs at a gas station for the color of his skin. This story needs to be heard. If you believe in real justice, not the kind that's written in books, but never applied hit-like, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because every week we bring you a story the system doesn't want you to know,